All right, so next we're going to be making this scene right here, this Coca-Cola bottle in these ice cubes. Now this might seem a little difficult, but it's actually not. It's very simple. And the process is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to be guiding you along the way. This Coca-Cola logo, we did add this later on in Photoshop. It's optional. If you want to add it, then you can. If not, then you just don't add it. We're not going to be adding this in Blender, by the way. All right, so let's begin with just creating the whole scene, right? So firstly, what I'm going to do is let me just minimize this. Let's open up Blender. Let's create a new project. And now what I'm going to do firstly is that I'm going to be adding a plane. I'm going to be increasing the size of this plane, something like that. So this is going to be our floor essentially, right? And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be adding an ice cube in our scene. What you can do is you can either go to add, create a cube object, and just sort of sculpt this a little bit. Just add a subdivision surface modifier to this. Now this process is a little difficult. It's a little more involved, but I'm going to be showing you a much simpler way of this as well also. So just make it simple. I'm just going to turn off optimal display just so that we can see the actual amount of subdivisions. So we can just increase it. Something like that should be good. I think something like that should be good. And now what you can do is you can get out of your X-ray mode, and so you can just apply this, go ahead and apply the subdivision surface modifier. Now, once we have some subdivisions, what we can do is we can go to the sculpting tab and we can sculpt this out, something like that. And we can make a whole ice cube out of this, right? A realistic looking ice cube. Now, obviously we're going to need some more segments. However, the easier way of doing all this, instead of doing all this, what you can simply do is that you can use the Blender Kit add-on to import a basic ice cube model, which you can then customize and modify. So if you don't have Blender Kit add-on installed, what you can do is you can go to the internet, search for Blender Kit, just go to the first website, not the sponsored one. The sponsored websites are often fake websites, so just be wary of them. And just go to blenderkit.com, by the way, and then just download Blender Kit. And then you can just download this and follow these instructions to install it, right? So you essentially need to just, once it's downloaded, you essentially just need to go to Edit, Preferences, and then Add-ons, and then just Install. And then just browse over to wherever you have that saved, install add-on, and then you can, once it's going to come here, you can just enable it to make sure that it is working, right? So once you have the Blender Kit add-on installed, what you can do is you can simply open this menu right here by clicking this arrow right here, click it, and once you open this, you're going to see Blender Kit right here. So you can essentially just search anything right here, or you can search using this search bar as well. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be searching for ice cube. You can also import an ice cube from Sketchfab or any other 3D model website, but I just prefer using this Blender Kit. So we're going to be using this model, and I think the model was really nice. It comes with all the modifiers, so it comes with a displacement modifier and some other modifiers which we can use to sort of modify and customize our ice cube. I am going to be customizing this, and I'm going to be changing the material into a custom one as well. Right, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be turning off Blender Kit, and let's actually create a lot of ice cubes for now. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be, actually, you know what, let me just scale the ice cube up slightly, because I think something like that should be good. Let's move it up, GZ, something like that should be good. Now, obviously, this is one ice cube and we want a lot of them, right? So you can either just press Shift D and you can then just keep duplicating them. Another option which you have, which is a lot simpler option, is just to go to the modifier menu and add a modifier, which is going to be the array modifier. And now you're going to see that it has two of them. Count is 2. Factor X is 1. I'm just going to set it to 1.1 so that the distance between them is a little a little more. And the count, I'm just going to be setting this to something like 8. So we want an 8x8 grid of ice cubes. I think that should be enough. Now, once this array modifier is added, I'm going to be adding another array modifier. And this time I'm going to be setting the factor X to 0 and the factor Y to 1.1, so that we are duplicating them in the Y axis. And again, I'm going to set this to 8 so that we have an 8x8 grid. That's perfect. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to be rotating this slightly. The reason why I'm doing this is so that let's not rotate it right now. I want to show you first how the simulation happens without us rotating it. Then you're going to understand why we're rotating it, right? So just bear with me for now. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to be separating these objects, because right now all of them are just one object, and that's not what we want. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be applying the array modifiers. So I'm just going to be selecting the array modifier, clicking this drop down button right here, clicking apply, and then once again, just this modifier, array modifier, just apply this as well. Once you do that, you're going to see that Still, all this is one object. However, all the objects are actually separated from each other. So if I just go to tab, and you're going to see, if I just tab into edit mode, you're going to see that all of them are separate objects, right? Press A to select everything, right? And I'm going to be pressing P now. P basically means separate, right? What you can do is you can just press P, separate, and by loose parts. What this means is that wherever there is sort of like a, basically the geometry, where the geometry ends, it's going to separate there, right? So now you're going to see what we've just done. If I tab out of edit mode, you're going to see that all of the ice cubes are separate objects, which is exactly what we want. And we have this whole collection of ice cubes in which we have all the ice cubes, right? That's perfectly fine. Now what we can do is we can actually, first what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be applying the scale. So I'm going to be pressing A. Let's deselect this by holding shift and pressing it twice. So that's just deselected. Now we only have the ice cube selected. I'm going to press Control A to apply the scale, apply all transforms essentially. Just apply all transforms. Now you're going to see that the displace modifier is going to be affecting them a little better. So it's just generally good practice to keep applying your transforms, right? Now I'm going to select all of them, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to object, and we're going to be setting origin to geometry. Now if we don't do this, when we do the physics simulation, things are not going to work properly. So we have to just go to object, set origin, and origin to geometry. Now you're going to see that all of the objects have their separate origins at their own center of geometry, right? So that's exactly what we want. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be selecting one of them, and I'm going to be going down to physics properties, and then we can just go ahead and add a rigid body simulation to this. The shape is going to be box, because I just want this to be a box, and the mass is fine, the type is active, and I think everything else is fine for now. Make sure that your box, the physics box, is on top of this ice cube. If it's somewhere else, then you might need to apply your scale, and you might need to set your origin to geometry. Yeah, that's why we did that. Anyways, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be pressing A to select everything. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to hold shift on my keyboard, and I'm going to be selecting this last one, right? So it's going to be selected with a different color. The rest of them are going to be selected with an orange color. However, this one is going to be selected with a different shade of orange, or maybe something close to a yellow. Anyways, so what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to be pressing F3 on my keyboard, just F3, nothing else. And it's going to be opening this menu, right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to search for copy from, and it's going to, this thing is going to come up, object, rigid body, copy from active. Just click that. Now what's going to happen is that it's essentially going to copy the rigid body settings from this object to all the other objects, right? So now if I just play this, you're going to see that, one second, you're going to see that all of them fall down, right? The reason why they're not actually touching this and they're actually intersecting the plane is because we don't have this plane, we don't have the rigid body simulation added to this plane. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be selecting this plane. Let's go to the physics properties, rigid body, and then just make this passive. If you make this active, then gravity is going to affect this, and this is going to fall down as well. So you're going to see if I play this, you're going to see that all of them fall down. But if I set this to passive, gravity is not going to affect this, and it's going to be taking collisions, right? That's perfectly fine. It works exactly the way we intended it. Yeah, right now the problem, however, is the fact that all of these ice cubes sort of come down very uniformly, and they just collide with the floor, and they don't rotate as they are in this one, right? So what we're going to be doing for that is that we are going to be actually rotating all these. That's why I was in the beginning of the tutorial, I was wanting to rotate them. That's the reason for that. So if you rotate it something like that, now you're going to see that it's going to the impact of the collision is going to be a lot more, right? So that's exactly what we want. However, right now the problem is that they are moving very far apart and they're not staying together. That's one problem. So what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be adding another object, which is going to be a cube. And this cube, I'm going to be placing it somewhere there. Let's scale it down, something like that, just so that it roughly covers the size of your ice cubes. And move it up, GZ, something like that, and SZ, scale it up like that. Right now we can't see anything inside it, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be also just keep saving your project, by the way. That's just a reminder for you guys. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to be selecting this. Let's go to the object properties, and in the viewport display settings, I'm going to be making sure that it is displayed as not textured, as wire. Right, so right now what's going to happen is that we can see what's going on inside the cube, and we can also have this cube on top of it, right? So the reason why we added this, by the way, was so that we could add physics properties to this as well. Rigid body, make this passive. So right now what's happening is that these cubes will not go outside the bounds of this this big cube, right? So they're just gonna stay inside. However, they're not doing that currently. They're just going all over the place. And the reason for that is because our for our cube, the collision shape is set to convex hull, which is not correct. It has to be set to mesh. If I do that, now you're going to see everything is going to be just the way we intended it to be. Perfect. So right now the problem is that our cube is a little too large, and so they're not really looking that good. Let's scale it down, something like that, and let's scale it up in the y-axis, something like that, just so that it's roughly covering the cubes. And now I think it looks really good, doesn't it? We can just put the bottle in the middle, and you can also add more more cubes if you want, but I think for now that these many cubes are fine. Okay, you can also go ahead and change the displacement modifier settings to make these cubes more irregular if you want, because right now they're a little too perfect. So I'm gonna select one of them. Let's just select this one. Let's go to the modifier menu, and let's go to the displace modifier, and here you can just change the strength. I can just increase the strength, something like that. And then what I can do is I can also go to the bevel modifier, and I can increase the bevel amount, which is going to make it a little more smooth. This is too much though, so something like 0.1, that might be good. I think that is a better looking ice cube as compared to the other ones. So now to apply these settings to all of them, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be pressing A to select all of them, shift and double click this to deselect it, shift and double click this to deselect it, and now shift and single click this to just select it as the active object, right? And now I'm going to press Ctrl L on my keyboard. This is going to open up the link/transfer data menu, and I can just click copy modifiers. Now it's going to apply that same exact modifier to all of them, which is perfectly fine. Now if I just play it, you're going to see that our ice cubes are looking pretty decent, right? That's exactly the way we want them to be. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and add our Coke bottle. So for that, you can either model your own Coke bottle, but I'm not going to do that because I want to keep this tutorial very simple. You can find a lot of tutorials for free on YouTube for that, for modeling the Coke bottle, and not Cube Coke. You can either get a can or you can get a bottle. So I'm going to be getting maybe this bottle. Let's download this. Let's see how it looks. Right, so I just added that Coke bottle, and I think it came inside this ice cube collection, so I'm just going to be removing it out of that, and let's close the collection. So basically, if I just select objects and then if I scale it up, you're going to see that we have this bottle. And so I'm just going to go to my material preview mode so that I can actually look at it and see how it looks. Okay, so this bottle comes with some water droplets on top of it, so we can use this. However, I actually want to show you guys how to add water droplets yourself, because obviously if you want to use a model which does not have water droplets, then you should know how to add them, right? So I'm just going to be deleting this. Select objects and delete. And I can't really find a good Coke bottle model from Blender Kit. So what I'm going to do, let me just search for free assets first. Let's hope we can find something. Yeah, so I'm not really finding anything good in here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to go to the internet, and let's go to sketchfab.com. Just go to the website, and then you can search for Coke. You can obviously use any other 3D models website. However, I prefer Sketchfab because the models are generally good, and it's not searching for some reason. I'm just gonna refresh it. Anyway, so yeah, you have a lot of these options in here, so you can choose any one of them. I'm just gonna make sure that it only shows me the downloadable options. And so most of these are cans. If you want a can, then you can definitely get a can too, but I want to have a bottle. Something like that might be good. How about this? I actually paid. Let me search for a Coke bottle so that it doesn't show me the cans. I think this one's good. This one's a good option. You can get that. We can get that too. I'm trying to look for the one which I got previously. That was a really good model, and I can't seem to find it now. So let's just search for Coke bottle 3D model. Or maybe was it Coca-Cola bottle 3D model? Yeah, Coca-Cola bottle 3D model. That's I think what I searched, and yeah, I think it was in Turbo Squid. Yeah, I think I got the model from Turbo Squid, but I'll have to make sure. Yeah, it was this model right here. My bad. So in this specific scene, in this specific scenario, you're actually getting a better model from Turbo Squid than Sketchfab. So yeah. Yeah, so I'm just going to download this. It's a free model. And you can even use the can if you want. But I'm going to be using the model. So it's going to ask me to log in. So I'm going to log in and I'll be back. Right, so now I can just go ahead and download this model for free. And it's going to take us to this page and we can download it from here. Right, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be downloading the OBJ file format. I did try the FBX one, but what was happening is that the FBX version was too old. So that's why we couldn't really open that. So I'm going to be using the OBJ version. So I'm just going to be dropping it right here, npm wall. That's the name. So I'm just going to be going to file, import, and then OBJ, desktop, and let's just go to this model and hopefully we can import it. Okay, so it's way too large right now. However, hopefully it should be fine. And I'm not really seeing the textures, so I hope these do come with the textures. So right, so these are the maps. I think we're gonna have to download them. Let's just open that, and yeah, okay, so these are basically the textures, so they come separately. So I'm gonna have to just select all of them, and let's actually just go ahead and create a new folder. I think I have a folder already named Coke, so I have the textures already imported. However, you can just copy them from that folder into this folder, right? And so now let's just apply the materials to these bottles. However, these are really large right now, so I'm going to be scaling them down. Press Alt and middle mouse button to reset your pivot point. And so right now, I think these are two separate objects. They're not actually, they're the same object. So I'm going to press Tab to go into edit mode, Alt Z to go into the X-ray mode. Let's select this whole object and let's delete it. Something like that. So we only have the Coke bottle. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the materials tab and let's actually go to the shading tab so that we can see properly. And so right now, if I just go to, let's first apply the label on it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be bringing materials in from here. So we can just scale it down a little bit, something like that. And so the label I think is this one. Let's import this, attach it to the color value, and I think it is looking pretty good. Perfect. And I think there was another label as well. Yeah, this one was for the can, I'm assuming. And okay, we also have a light Coca-Cola light label if that's what you want. And so I think the other materials are going to be, the glass is just going to be a simple glass. So we're going to increase the transmission to 1, and then we're going to be reducing the transmission roughness to 0, and it's already 0, so we don't really need to do that. And the roughness of this, roughness of the material to 0 as well. Now it's perfect. It's not looking good right now, but don't worry about that. We're going to be fixing this in just a bit. So after that, what other materials do we have? So we have the cap material. So I'm going to go to my Coke folder. Let's bring in the cap and let's apply it like that. And hopefully the cap material should be fine, which it is. Let's increase the metallic of the cap material, of the cap. And I think something like that should be good. We can adjust it later on. So we're gonna, once we're done with the lighting, we'll adjust the materials later on. But right now, I think we're good. And also this label, I think we should increase the metallic slightly, something like that, and reduce the roughness a little bit. We can obviously make tweaks later on though. So let's just look at it, look at this bottle, and yeah, so we also need the fluid. So the actual Coke itself. So I'm just gonna go to this cola material, and what we're gonna be doing with this is that we're actually gonna be removing this principled PSDF material, this sort of node, and then we're going to be adding another node by pressing Shift A, and let's search for a volume node. So a principled volume node. Let's bring this in and let's plug this into the volume tab. And so we're going to be tweaking these settings later on once we're done with the lighting, because we can't really see the volume inside of this material preview mode. We're going to have to go into the rendered mode for that. So we can just do that later on once we're done with the lighting. Anyway, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be actually going ahead and placing this bottle properly. So we can just rotate it in the x-axis 90 degrees, negative 90 degrees, something like that. Let's bring it up, GZ. Let's go here and let's actually place it somewhere here. However, the problem is that we're actually seeing through the glass, through the ice cubes quite a lot. So we might have to change. Let's go back in time and let's see where it looks the best. I think something like that might be a good position. That's a good time, I think. And so let's rotate it something like that. And let's place it right here. I think that should be a good position. However, I am going to add some more ice cubes because these ice cubes are not enough. And you can also move individual ice cubes, by the way, if you think some of them are obstructing, some of them are intersecting with, oops, my bad. Some of them are intersecting with the bottle. You can just move them like this. I am not able to move them for some reason. Yeah, I think we're going to have to apply the physics simulation first. So we can just do that later on once we're done with the texturing, I believe. Yeah, so I think let's begin with the texturing first by going to this lit mode. But before the texturing, I'm going to have to do the lighting first. So let's just set up a basic lighting setup and then we can continue with the texturing. So I'm just going to go to add. Let's add an area light, something like that. GZ, move it up. And I'm going to rotate it in the x-axis, yeah, like that. And then rotate it in the z-axis too. And let's move it right there. So a light from the side should be good. I think it is looking pretty good already. However, obviously it's not looking that good either, to be honest. Let me change the device to GPU compute because that's going to render it faster. And I think we're looking pretty good already. Let's actually go ahead and add an HDRI. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching the preview of this course. Now I really hope you're enjoying this course so far, and if you want to watch the rest of this course, it is on Udemy. It is paid, unfortunately. However, you can find a really good discount if you go to the link in the description. Now unfortunately, YouTube does not really pay that much, and making these videos takes a lot of effort and time, so I do have to make these videos paid for now. But yeah, hopefully in the future I will consider making free videos as well. Yeah, thanks a lot for watching guys, and if you go to the link in the description, you will be supporting this channel as well. See ya.